Okay, gonna go live in just a minute. We're gonna recap this weekend's fights. Just gotta wait and see if I get anyone in the audience first. We'll wait a little bit. Oh, I already got somebody. Okay, all right. Welcome back to WMAC Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson. Welcome to the weekend recap for January 23rd, 2022. First up, before we get into things, please like the stream, share it to your various social media pages. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Could always use new subscribers. And hit the notification bell so you know when stuff actually gets posted. I had a good weekend of fights. You know, nothing too wild and crazy, but nothing like super high stakes for any of the women's divisions. But it was a good weekend of fights. So I went over like 4 fights for this weekend, and I thought they were all pretty good. So let's go ahead and get started. Then we're going to talk about Amanda Nunes leaving American Top Team and Katlyn Chookagian exploring free agency, which basically the UFC has forced her into. So let's get started with the recap first. So first up, we're going to Kansas City, Kansas, LFA 122. We had a bantamweight fight, whereas Brittney Cloudy on the right-hand side there. Hold on. Brittney Cloudy on the right defeated local girl Annette Nichols via TKO, 3 minutes, 14 seconds of the first round. It is actually a doctor stoppage. Cloudy just busted, what's her name? Annette Nichols up. Absolutely busted her up. And the end really started. She landed a big, heavy knee to the gut of Nichols and then just started pouring it on from there. And Nichols was already cut on the nose before, but once Cloudy started pouring on some punches and elbows and everything, the blood really started to pour, and referee Mike England stopped the fight, had the ringside doctor look at it, and they waved it off. Nice performance there for Brittney Cloudy. She climbed to 4-3. Nichols fell to 2-1. Nichols just had a really bad habit of, as she was coming forward, of like fighting kind of like with her head facing down. Like she wasn't tucking her chin, but she was like leaning over, coming forward with her strikes. And it's harder to see what your opponent's doing when you're doing that. We got Just Wave in the chat and Perez as well, both waving. Welcome to the stream, guys. I ain't seen you guys in a while. But nice performance there for Brittney Cloudy. Then we had at FEN 38, which is Fight Exclusive Night 38 in Poland, had a bantamweight championship bout, inaugural bantamweight championship bout, where Ekaterina Shakalova on the left there defeated Julia Kusenko via submission due to rear naked choke, 3 minutes of the first round. I thought Kusenko was doing pretty good on the feet, really aggressive with her strikes, and Shakalova wasn't really able to keep up. So Shakalova just said, screw it. Shot for a takedown, got a double leg, and just passed Kusenko's guard like it was nothing. Went to side control, just started landing elbows like crazy. I thought for a minute there that the referee was going to stop it for a TKO, but Kusenko, really bad fight IQ on the ground. You know, she kept trying to turn away from Shakalova, which just made it worse for her as far as the ground and pound goes. But even more so, once Shakalova fully turned away from, once Kusenko fully turned away from Shakalova, it allowed Shakalova to get on the ground or to get on her back and sink in the rear naked choke for the victory. So Shakalova claims the FEN inaugural bantamweight championship. She climbs to 7-1 as a pro. Kusenko fell to 6-8. Little bit of a gimme there for Shakalova, a little bit, but Kusenko was doing really well on the feet. Shakalova, keep an eye on her. She's one of the fighters. I just featured her in my prospects watch for 2022, so keep an eye out on her. So then keeping things moving, we moved to UFC 270 in Anaheim, California, had a pair of ladies bouts. Jasmine Jasooda Vicious defeated Kay Hansen in a flyweight bout via unanimous decision. It was 30-27 once and then 29-28 twice. Both judges that had it 29-28 gave the third round to Kay Hansen, which I don't disagree with that. I thought Hansen actually landed the better strikes in the third round. She was landing her left hand at will, her lead left, especially getting the check hook going. The latter half of the second round onward was when Kay Hansen started to finally find her timing on the feet. It's just that she wasn't getting much else done anywhere else in the fight. Jasooda Vicious had the better ground and pound. She actually landed the better takedowns in the fight and was landing the better ground and pound. Hansen got one takedown in the second round, but Jasooda Vicious was able to sweep her and get on top and land more of her ground and pound from there. So overall, Jasooda Vicious had the better fight overall. Hansen, I think, had the better third round. But it was a good fight, a fun fight. I just recorded my review for this one, so I'll have it up after the stream is done. I got to edit it and then upload it. But I thought this was a good one, and then it's a good start to the evening. You know, like didn't have a finish, but this is a good opening bout because it was fun. It had plenty of action. There was no real like wall install or lay and pray going on in this fight. Just two ladies going at it, scrapping it out. Jasooda Vicious climbed to 7-1. Hansen fell to 7-5. Hansen also said on social media afterwards that she's going back down to strawweight, which I thought moving up to flyweight was a bad idea for her because she's fought at flyweight before. She's gone back and forth in her career between straw and fly and had mixed results. But speaking of strawweight, moving down to strawweight for the second bout of the evening, Vanessa Demopolis defeated Savannah Gomez Juarez via submission due to armbar, 2:25 of the first round. This was a fun fight too, for while it lasted. It didn't last very long, but it was fun while it lasted. Gomez Juarez, she packs a wallop in her right hand. Like Demopolis came out very aggressive at first, striking, coming straight forward on Gomez Juarez, who circled around and then like landed an overhand right that just thudded Demopolis and stopped her like right in her tracks. Demopolis kind of shook it off a little bit and then started coming forward again. And she has very sloppy defense, does Vanessa Demopolis, and left her chin wide open. Gomez Juarez again landed a huge overhand right, just straight up dropped Demopolis. And she admitted that, you know, she woke up on the floor, like that the punch put her out and she woke up on the floor. And then Gomez Juarez, I'm watching the fight live, and as she follows Demopolis to the ground, I'm thinking, no, what are you doing? Follows Demopolis, but allows didn't pass guard fast enough, or really even try to pass guard fast enough. Allowed Demopolis to get back to full guard. From there, Demopolis trapped the left arm, brought her guard high, and brought her left leg up and over to latch on the arm bar, stretched it out, and Juarez had no choice but to tap out. Just bad fight IQ from Savannah Gomez Juarez. I said this in as I was recording my view before I restarted the stream. I don't know if it was just bad fight IQ on her part, if it was her team failing to do the homework, because I knew going in that having watched these ladies fight before, both of them fight, that Gomez Juarez could win this on the feet. But if she allows Demopolis to get the fight to the ground, that it would be it'd be over for her. And she just followed her straight to the ground. Just a bad choice on the part of Savannah Gomez Juarez. But I'll tell you what, we might have seen a star born last night with Vanessa Demopolis. She made a good impression at the live ceremonial weigh-in show. She stepped off the scale, did like an aerial into a split, did another split after the win last night, and then had a really good interview with Joe Rogan, and then jumped up into his arms, which he kind of let her do. And I wish this fight wasn't stuck on the early prelims, because it would have allowed more people to see it. But immediately afterwards, I'm on social media, and people were talking about this fight. They were talking about Vanessa Demopolis. And she's already, this picture right here has already been turned into a meme. I'm seeing memes on Instagram and Twitter. So we may have seen the birth of a star last night. Now, do I think that Vanessa Demopolis is championship material? No, I honestly don't. But that doesn't mean that they can't do big things with her. They can't, build her into like a star in her own right. I mean, they're doing the same thing with Sean O'Malley, and he's not facing good competition either. But yet, he has tons of followers. It's popular. So they could do the same with Vanessa Demopolis. The key is going to be matchmaking, though. They got to match her up right. But I saw on Twitter that she gained 38,000 Instagram followers overnight. So I'm sure that the news, that I had already known this beforehand, but she talked about in her post-fight interview that she quit her regular job as an exotic dancer to train full-time for this fight, and it really paid off. So like I already knew she had done that like she had talked in interviews in the past that's how she got her start in MMA. Some like a coach or a manager scouted her on stage on the pole. So it's a weird story, but it's pretty cool. Perez says she is a former stripper. Yes, she is. But yeah, the matchmaking is going to be very important for Vanessa Demopolis if the UFC wants to build her into something. So that's it for the weekend recap. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. First, so Amanda Nunes has left American Top Team and is going to start her own gym and everything, and it's caused quite a stir here. It says Brazilian, this is from MMASaka.com. It says Brazilian news site Combate reported that reigning UFC women's featherweight and former bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes decided to leave American Top Team, which has been her gym for the past 7 years. The Lioness, 33, ended her relationship with one of the most renowned gyms after losing her bantamweight championship belt to Juliana Pena at UFC 269. The loss came as a big upset, as Nunes not only tapped out to rear naked choke, but was her first defeat since UFC 178 in September 2014, when she lost by a TKO to Kat Zingano. Until then, she was training in the MMA Masters Gym in Miami, Florida. The aforementioned loss to Zingano motivated Nunes to join ATT, which was her first step on the road to 2 divisional champion status. After crossing the doorstep of Dan Lambert's gym in Coconut Creek, Florida, Nunes stacked up a 12-fight winning streak, including victories over who's who of women's MMA: Chris Cyborg, Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko, and Holly Holm, grabbing both featherweight and bantamweight title belts in the process. It looks like her title loss to Pena gave Nunes an idea to change her surroundings. According to Combate's report, she will fund her own gym, which will still be located in Florida. This is the second loss to a top UFC caliber fighter for the American Top Team after Colby Covington left, blah, 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 blah. As for Nunes, she targets a rematch with the Venezuelan Vixen in the near future. Okay, so here's my thoughts on this. This isn't like her. I guess it's mostly being made a big deal of because of the loss. But Nunes had actually talked about this before. Like she had talked about wanting to start her own gym in order to make money outside of fighting. Like this, she had talked about this, I think even before her last fight before Pena. So the fact that she's starting her own team, her own gym, that's not news, honestly. I think people just forgot that was already in the plan. But what really strikes people is that it came up in the news again because of the loss to Pena. And the controversy is she making a mistake so soon after a loss like this? Sometimes it can be a good thing for a fighter to change up things, sometimes bad. We talked about this in my stream earlier today. Sometimes it's good because, one thing I like about what a lot of MMA fighters do is that they form these big teams so that they have good training partners. And they always have good workout partners, good training partners. You get that team environment that really works to help build a fighter up. But sometimes you reach a certain level. And I think for some fighters, once they reach a certain level, they should start following more along the boxing model of fight camps, where if you're training for your fight, the focus is going to be entirely on you. Like with these big MMA gyms, if you might have multiple fighters have the fights coming up, and a fighter is not only getting prepared for their own fight, they're helping another fighter prepare for their fight. So then the focus isn't on you entirely. And if you're a champion, the focus needs to be on you. Like in boxing, your training camp for your fights, you're it. Like you've got yourself, you've got your coaches and trainers, and then they bring in special training partners that are there specifically to help you. You've got sparring partners that are there to help you train. So I feel like at a certain level for MMA fighters, they should try to focus and change things up to go, follow more the boxing model instead of not only preparing for your own fights, but helping other fighters prepare for theirs. The fight game is selfish. And, when you're broke someday, other fighters aren't going to have enough money to give out to you because most of them are broke too. So you got to focus on yourself and your own career at a certain point. Do I think this is necessarily good for Nunes at this point in time? I'm not so sure, because there were rumors that before the fight, and Pena was talking about it, that, she wasn't focused. She wasn't training hard in the gym. She wasn't as focused. And if Nunes is having a hard time staying focused when she's surrounded by her fellow fighters and her teammates, how is she going to stay focused when she's the one running things? Like, how do you stay focused when you're dealing with all those other distractions? When you're the one running your camp, you're the one in charge of everything, it's harder to stay focused like that. Or you have to stay even more focused. And if you're having a hard time staying focused before, you got to be doubly focused now, and you can't have any distractions. You can't have any distractions. That's why so many fighters go away from home to train. And, I hate to be mean, but this right here, Nina and the baby, they're going to be a distraction for Amanda. I mean, hey, good for her. She's a mom. She's a loving mom. She's got the kid and all that. But when it comes time to train, you're a champion. You've got to focus on yourself. You got to be selfish as a mixed martial artist, as a fighter. Fighters have to be selfish. So I don't think right now was the best time to start. Like I said, though, this wasn't necessarily news. It's just that it came to the surface, like really bubbled up after the loss, but this was already in the works. This is already in the plans. Perez says, have seen former fighters in personal life start gyms and end up bankrupt. Yeah, it doesn't always work out. Gyms are expensive. Brick and mortar, anytime you're doing brick and mortar, it gets expensive. Owning property is expensive in Florida. The property prices are skyrocketing. Rent is expensive. But I mean, at the end of the day, though, if she does go broke, she can always sell the gym. So that's kind of like a backstop there. But it's hard starting your own gym because you've got to attract fighters too, and that takes years sometimes for gyms to build up and start fighters. Jimmy Digital says, "Who is the next 135 champ after Pena Nunes?" I don't know. A lot of people want Shevchenko to go up and challenge for the belt, become double champ. Personally, I'm sick of double champs. I think they're a waste of everyone's time. Aldana's looking good sometimes, but Holly Holm's always lingering around. Who knows at this point? So that's Nunes. Wanted to talk a little bit about Nunes and her split from ATT. The other thing I want to talk about is Katlyn Chookagian and her free agency. It says, here, let me enlarge it here. Katlyn Chookagian hits free agency after revealing UFC declined to offer new contract before latest win. It says one time, this is MMAfighting.com, by the way. One-time UFC flyweight title challenger Katlyn Chookagian hopes she'll still have a home in the UFC after revealing that the promotion declined to offer her a new contract before her UFC Vegas 46 win on Saturday night. The last bout on Chookagian's current contract was a dominant showcase as she earned a unanimous decision over Jennifer Maia to notch her third straight victory. Afterward, she detailed her surprise when the UFC opted not to negotiate with her on a new deal ahead of time, which means she's now a free agent. Quote, "This is the last fight on my contract, and usually when you have one more, they renegotiate your contract," Chookagian said during UFC Vegas 46's post-fight press conference. "So when they offered this fight, I'm like, oh, I'm up for a negotiation for a new contract. And they were like, oh, no, we want you to fight this contract out. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cut me, but it's usually not good news. Hopefully with this performance, I'd like to think they want to keep me. I want to stay here. So hopefully I proved that tonight." It says Chookagian has been a mainstay on the UFC roster since 2016, and she's been a perennial contender in the flyweight division ever since the promotion added the 125-pound weight class for women. Over the past 2 years, Chookagian has only suffered losses to reigning champion Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade, earning 4 wins in the division, including her current 3-fight winning streak. In theory, Chookagian should be climbing back into title contention, but now she can't help but wonder what will come next now that the UFC has allowed her to fight out her contract. "I think the UFC needs to re-sign me before I think about a title shot," Chookagian said. "I'm on a 3-fight win streak, all top 5 opponents, so I would hope they re-sign me. They didn't want to extend my contract before this fight, so hopefully I proved I belong here. I'm number 2 in the division. I've been number 2 or number 1 for 3 or 4 years since the division started. I have as many wins as Valentina Shevchenko. I've beaten probably more top 10 fighters than any other fighter in the UFC, male or female. This is my 14th fight. I think all but 2, maybe 3, were all top 10 opponents. So I think I earned my spot here in the UFC. So hopefully I get that call next week. I just hope that I'm still a UFC fighter after this performance." Following the event, UFC President Dana White also addressed Chookagian's status with the promotion, while deferring to his matchmakers when it came to the decision to allow her to reach free agency rather than offering her a new deal ahead of Saturday night. "I know that we went into this fight with her contract. It's expired now," White said. "She's a free agent now. I don't know. That was between her and Mick Maynard. He did that deal with her, so we'll see what happens." Chookagian made it clear that her preference is to remain with the UFC, but if she doesn't receive another offer, there are certainly other promotions such as Bellator currently promoting a women's flyweight division. This latest win certainly isn't the end for her, so Chookagian will fight again. But whether or not that's inside the UFC octagon remains to be seen. "I'm a fighter," Chookagian said. "I'll keep fighting no matter what, but I want to stay in the UFC for sure." So this is going to be tough for Katlyn Chookagian. The UFC not wanting to renegotiate a new contract before her fight. Honestly, that tells me that they were hoping that she would lose. Because if she lost, then they could say, hey, you just lost. Why are we going to renew your contract? Whereas if she won, they could say, okay, now here's your new contract. And they slide her a new contract. And what they're going to do is they're going to offer her a cut in pay. And they're going to say, take it or leave it. That's what's going to end up happening. If the UFC does end up offering her a new contract, I think it's going to be for less pay. Because she's making up there around like 70 to show, 70K to win. That's up there. That's like just below championship pay. And she's not the most exciting fighter. She's known as a points fighter, a decision fighter. Although I thought she showed a lot more gusto, a lot more go for broke in her fight against Maya than she had previously. And I think the contract situation certainly was the incentive to do that, like for her to like really get more aggressive, because she was more aggressive in this fight. So I think what they're going to do is say, hey, go see what you can get elsewhere. Well, the only other like good promotion that's really pushing flyweights right now, the women's flyweight division, is Bellator. Bellator is not going to give her the same amount of money that the UFC is. They can't afford it. They just can't. They can't. What Katlyn Chookagian is making now is what Ilima-Lei Macfarlane was making as Bellator champion. So they're not going to. I don't see them offering Katlyn Chookagian a bunch of money, because they already get enough flack for being the place for UFC rejects to go. And they already have one former UFC fighter that they signed with a reputation for being boring in Liz Carmouche. And she's probably going to challenge for the title soon. Do they really want another former UFC title fighter that has a reputation for being boring? Bellator can't afford that. I mean, they get enough crap from the fans as it is. For the UFC, so then what happens? They send her back to the UFC. And that's when the UFC slides that contract across and goes, here's our offer. And it's going to be for less money. And it's going to be take it or leave it. And at that point, if Bellator isn't giving her a good offer, she's going to have to take it. Now, what I might do, if I were in the UFC's matchmakers making the contracts, what I would do is I would offer her a contract that says for her to compete at bantamweight. Because what Katlyn's doing right now is the type of thing promoters hate. She can't beat the champion, but she can beat everyone else ranked below her, and that's what she's been doing. She has been beating ranked fighter after ranked fighter after ranked fighter, and is basically sitting there as a roadblock to the new prospects that the UFC is trying to turn into contenders. And they either got to have those fighters skip over her, and then it looks bad because then you got like the fourth ranked, fifth ranked fighter skipping over the top three to fight the champion when they haven't even shown that they deserve that title shot. Or you can get rid of the roadblock and move those fighters up the ranks automatically, and then it looks like, oh, they earned their shot. Or no, that's what you could do. The other problem is you either skip the fighters over the roadblock, or you have those fighters run into the roadblock. And she's a roadblock for a reason. So then you're basically killing off your prospects, your potential title challengers. So the UFC would be, as a business, mind you, as a business, the UFC is better served not having her fight at flyweight, not being that roadblock, because then it can keep the division going and keep feeding, the champion. So as I was saying, if I were the UFC, if I were in the UFC shoes, I'd hand her a contract to fight at bantamweight to move back up to bantamweight. She only had one loss at bantamweight to Liz Carmouche at the time, but she moved down to flyweight, and she was on a winning streak. And I think Katlyn would still be competitive as a bantamweight. So if I was the UFC, if they choose to offer her another contract, I'd say, listen, you're either going to fight at flyweight for less pay, or we can move you up a weight class to bantamweight. If you want to keep your same pay, if you want to keep making that good money, then we need you to fight at bantamweight. Because honestly, bantamweight needs fighters. It does. It needs more challengers. It needs more contenders right now than flyweight does. And flyweight certainly doesn't need the roadblock that Chookagian is providing. They just got rid of one potential roadblock in Jessica Andrade. She's moving back down to strawweight. They get rid of Chookagian, and that leaves the top of the division wide open. Because let me pull up the rankings here real quick. You got Andrade at 1, Chookagian at 2, Lauren Murphy at 3, Maya at 4. Now these haven't been updated yet. So Andrade is going to move down to strawweight, which takes her out of the number 1 spot. If they get Chookagian out of the flyweight division as well, everybody below them moves up 2 spots automatically. So then you have Tyler Santos would move up to 3, for example. Then you actually have a good, legit reason to have her challenge for the title at number 3. You got fighters like, you got a bunch of fighters that are potentially moving up to title contention. So yeah, honestly, UFC not having Chookagian at flyweight probably is better business-wise. Do I think she deserves to have that kind of thing happen to her? No, I don't. I think she's a good fighter, and she's earned it. It's just she's just not a super entertaining fighter, which not every fighter is going to be that way. And sometimes you just get these good fighters that aren't always fun to watch. They aren't as exciting. But personally, I like watching her fight. I like watching her beat up on I like watching her beat contenders, because to me, if you can't beat the people at the top of the division, you don't deserve to face the champion. So, yep, Chookagian's between a rock and a hard place right now. Let's go ahead into the chat. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe as well. Jimmy Digital says, I'd like to see Aldana. Yeah, I'd love to see Aldana as bantamweight champion. Jimmy also says, Morose still hasn't pulled out. She has not yet. And that fight's in March. So she's got over a month and a half to pull out still. We'll see. I hope she doesn't, because I think she can beat Agapova. And she hasn't fought since March of 2020. So she needs to get back in there and fight. I like Morose. So that's really all I have for the weekend recap. Didn't want to keep this stream too long, but anybody has anything in the chat, go ahead and leave it now before I go. Like I mentioned, please give the stream a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you know when new stuff gets posted right away, because sometimes being subscribed just isn't enough. Nothing else in the chat. So if you are watching this on the replay, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like the video, please give it a like, share it as well. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.